under the world. It's going to make knowledge more accessible. But on the other hand, we have these studies which say that Gen AI might deeply impact the cognitive abilities of kids.
Our decisions, our ability to think, our ability to form opinion are all now controlled by different form of technology, whether it's from social media, using its curated algorithmic feeds, or now we are heading into the AI.
Hello and welcome to Technocracy. I am Heena Goswami, editorial consultant with IGPP, Institute for Governance, Policies and Politics, New Delhi. Around the world, classrooms are undergoing a transformation. But this isn't a quiet evolution driven by new syllabus or teaching methods. It's a shift powered by algorithms, data systems, and invisible platforms. According to early findings referenced by 2024 OECD Education Outlook, many students in middle and high income countries are engaging with generative AI tools regularly. Some studies suggest that this figure may be as high as 50%. It's a staggering trend, one that speaks not only of the power of technology, but also of its quiet authority in shaping the minds of the next generation, which raises an urgent question. Who is really teaching our children? And just as importantly, who is being left out of that process? Because the story of AI in education is not simply one of innovation. It's about power, politics, and the kind of future we want to imagine for education in democratic societies. Across classrooms, AI has already moved from being a supplementary tool to becoming part of the learning infrastructure. According to UNESCO, 43 countries had launched nationwide AI-based education initiatives by the end of 2024. These tools are no longer optional enhancements. They are defining how students are taught, how they are evaluated, and how risk or ability is calculated. Increasingly, it's not just governments or teachers shaping curriculum, it's major edtech firms. Companies like Pearson, Duolingo, Khan Academy are delivering AI-powered learning material through partnership with states. But while the interface may look polished, the pedagogical logic underneath is often opaque. Most models don't disclose their training datasets, assumptions, or biases. In Brazil, for example, predictive tools were used to flag students at the risk of academic failure, but schools were given no insights into what variables led to that flagging or how the suggested interventions were designed. Are we still teaching students or simply conditioning them to perform according to a model's logic? These issues are political, even if they are rarely discussed that way. Across the globe, AI in education is being packed as a benign, even noble goal, bridging the digital divide, enhancing learning outcomes, closing achievement gaps. But in practice, these deployments often concentrate control, shift power away from local educators, and privatize key elements of the public curriculum. In India, for example, AI systems are being introduced in government-run schools as part of broader digital education initiatives. States like Kerala, Maharashtra have begun pilot projects involving AI-based tools for assessment and content delivery. However, critics point out the lack of detailed public documentation, consultation, or standardized frameworks to evaluate their impact. These efforts, while ambitious, often unfold without robust mechanism for public feedback or student consent, raising concerns about surveillance, exclusion, and the prioritization of data collection over meaningful reform. Globally, too, there's a creeping shift from educational support to educational surveillance. In China, AI-powered cameras track student attendance and posture. In the US, emotion recognition softwares have been trialed to detect stress and disengagement. In Europe, keystroke monitoring, webcam tracking have become common during the pandemic shift to online classes. These tools are marketed as tools to boost learning and engagement, but more often they are used to discipline attention, flag non compliance, and enforce a narrow standard of acceptable behavior. The shift also brings structural inequities into sharper relief. AI assumes a world where everyone has the same access to data, devices, and connectivity. But we know that's not the case. Large language models and AI tutors are predominantly trained on English language content, often rooted in Western cultural context. This leaves local and indigenous languages marginalized, not just in terms of vocabulary, but also in ways of thinking, learning, and relating to knowledge. Also, despite the global spread of AI in classrooms, there's no binding international framework to regulate its use. UNESCO and OECD have issued guidelines and principles, important but ultimately non binding. Enforcement remains weak. A few countries like France and South Korea are experimenting with legal safeguards, but in many others, AI deployment in school proceeds with little scrutiny. Still, there are signs of how things could be done differently. In Barcelona, the city's tech charter includes public consultation before adopting digital tools in education. In Kerala, the Little Kites program trains students to build and question AI tools, a rare model that centers on civic literacy and not just technical skills. Finland's AI curriculum includes ethics and societal impact as core components, not just afterthoughts. These efforts suggest that AI doesn't have to be a force of replacement. It can be and should be designed to support educators and not sideline them. Ultimately, the presence of AI in education forces us to confront a larger question. What kind of learning systems are we building? AI systems are not neutral. We must demand public oversight over AI deployments in classrooms. We must insist on transparency, on accountability, and on equity, not just in policy documents, but in classroom itself. Because education is not just about information, it's about imagination, critical thoughts, and shared values. And those things cannot be taught by machines alone. To further understand how AI can be better utilized to improve educational attainments and learning outcomes, today we are joined by Mr. Jibu Elias. Mr. Jibu Elias is an AI ethicist, researcher, and activist dedicated to fostering the development of a unified AI ecosystem in India. His focus is on mitigating digital divide created by technologies like AI, and he is actively engaged in the formulation of inclusive AI ethics and governance guidelines with the aim of ensuring that the benefits of AI are accessible to all segments of society. So, Jibu, on one hand, we hear that AI is going to democratize everything under the world, it's going to make knowledge more accessible. But on the other hand, we have these studies which say that Gen AI might deeply impact the cognitive abilities of kids. So, how should, as educators, parents, as stakeholders in the larger society, we should feel about the advent of AI? Should we be excited about it or disheartened by its possible impact?
So one thing I remember is that when I was a child growing up, I sit very close to TV, and my mom used to tell me, my parents used to tell, "Don't sit there, you will, damage your eyes, damage your eyes." And I'm like, no, that's illogical. And generally, the public perception was that it's okay, there is nothing bad gonna happen watching TV. But now, when I have glasses, when I look back, and my friend who is a ophthalmologist, she clearly told me how in childhood, how a huge exposure to television might have affected my vision as well as the other children, right? So it's a matter of time that we are going through uh, this episode of I told you so's many where. Look at smartphones, right? We are seeing a counterculture of people switching back to minimalist phones like light phone, Medita Compact and others. On the other hand, people are their Gen Zs are switching to dumb phones. Uh, the level of addiction we've been in terms of social media and content consumption is scary, and that has been in one way affecting our ability to focus, our ability to think better, relationships, so many things, right? So so I was quite hesitant about answering this question, because what if I say something and I get wrong? But now, since I have these examples that has happened previously, yes, I definitely think it is affecting the cognitive abilities of not just youngsters, but I can say myself as well, because recently I started the habit of drafting my emails with LLMs, and now when I had to write an email on my phone, and I'm like, it took me a good 10 seconds. Like, what am I supposed to do? Right? How do I start? So normally, my former boss, my colleague Asna keeps complaints that Jibu, your emails is full of typos and grammatical error. And when AI came out, it became like a trademark. It's like a fingerprint. Okay, Jibu wrote the email. But now, when everybody is expecting very polished emails, and so what you do is you just dump your thoughts. Hey, I wanted to send an email to Heena scheduling the podcast. I think September 4th, Friday is the time. Make it sound very professional and humble. And then it will give you. But now, if you're asking me to write an email immediately, it's taking that few seconds. So we are in this severe, in a question where we are facing these kind of challenges. At the same time, I remember I had a conversation with this student in SSVM school, where I was giving a talk few days back. Phenomenal students. So he asked me that he did a very, very good research on me, and he knew that I'm a fan of the movie Wall-E, the Pixar movie. And he's like, do you think in future we will be headed to a situation like Wall-E, where humans are lazy and in floating chairs, consuming junk food, and not incapable of making any decisions? Then while that conversation was happening, I just realized we are halfway there. Our decisions, our ability to think, our ability to form opinion are all now controlled by different form of technology, whether it's from social media, using its uh, curated algorithmic feeds, or now we are heading into AI. So it's a serious threat.
Talk about youngsters, we see there's this erosion of comprehension skills even amongst adults, but I mean, sticking to kids, for whom it's more important to learn and know. So I mean, India was already at a level which was not at par with the educational attainments of middle income or high income countries. I remember this one test where Indian children had amongst the lowest level of comprehension and numerical skills, right? So have our problems become like doubly compounded because one, we were already doing bad, and now with Gen AI tools, I mean, our students are even more dependent upon these new technologies without picking up on the basic comprehension skills.
So I think, first of all, anyone who is looking into school or uh, college education to an undergraduate level need to see how this education systems were formed. Okay, our schools were created for us to become factory workers, right? It was a way to separate us from homes, the kids, from 9 to 5. And our education system is overall, to a big part shaped by the British, was to create clerks. I mean, everything goes back to the colonial legacy, or colonial hangover, or however you want to call it. Now, coming and unfortunately, it stayed that way for a long time. I remember when I was a student in Loyola College, I had some phenomenal teachers there, who shaped my career and life, who some of them who I'm still in touch with, very who are very happy to see my growth in life as well. But there are others who used to come to the class with a bunch of note cards. These are like very old note cards with the ink is almost kind of the blue ink has kind of became a turquoise shade, and they will just read out from that. And the sad thing is that's the notes they prepared when they were the master's students in the same college. There are other teachers who will come and give us this I don't know if you remember, there is this OCR sheets which you put under the projector. I mean, if any of the Gen Zs are hearing this, they will be wondering what it is. So it used to be a transparent sheet of plastic paper where you write and you put it under a scanner like device. Then it will be projected on a larger projector or larger screen. So I remember there were teachers who will come and give us and ask to take Xerox and just study from this. So our education system has been stagnant for decades. That's why somebody who studied their masters 20 years ago could use the same notes to their children as the students as well. So our education system and I have noticed that with all respect, teachers are the group of professionals who are so averse to any kind of changes, right? And I say it with my mom being a retired professor. I hope she's not overhearing this. uh it's like, and there will be always this question, whenever you suggest a change, that's it, we studied like that and look, we all turned out good, right? And I recently heard from a colleague that a very top head of the department of one of the prominent Indian private universities in Department of English, where the teacher is like, so the number of students signing up for English courses has declined, and the job prospects has also reduced. So, but the HOD was very adamant that saying we saw internet and that went away. AI is going to be like another wave; it will also go away, and I couldn't decide between what I should be more upset about, her ignorance or her arrogance making a statement like that, right? And whenever I have seen that, I've been lucky enough to be part of board of studies or advisory groups of certain universities, executive fellow and other things, and I have seen whenever you raise any questions criticizing their systems, next call you, they won't invite you, right? So that's a question, if they only want yes people and they wanted to have that stagnation, then what is the point? So there is this good example. I think that currently the best school education in the world that belongs to Finland, if I'm correct. And I remember in 1992 they came in the bottom half, and they went into a thorough change of the system. And Finland, Netherlands, they have some of the best education system. And there was this minister in Kerala. His name was PJ Joseph. He was education minister, and my father is very fortunate to have worked with him. He brought the similar concepts from Netherlands to Kerala in 1998. It's called a District Primary Education Program, DPEP. It was, I think, implemented in 95, 98, something. So the idea was that screw rote learning, let the students learn by practical experiences. So one good example will be, instead of teaching somebody that Archimedes principle is XYZ, why don't you bring a jar of water, put a solid in it and show them the displacement of water, right? The idea was brilliant, but the teachers revolted against it. There was mass strikes, and it has to, and the government has to withdraw it. So, and now what is happening is, every day I get messages from teachers who are, from in some of the reputed colleges, mostly in humanities department, saying, what should I do now? How do I do in the age of AI, right? So what is gonna happen is, we were complacent with our education system. Our faculties were stagnant, and now we are gonna pay the price for that. unfortunately.
Jibu, I'm also one of those part-time teachers who take notes to the
I
class.
forgot that. I forgot that for a second.
But no, I make my notes every day, every semester, so they are not as old. I'm also one of those people who advise my students against using ChatGPT, because I feel that, they would not pick up on those skills of, reading a lot, being able to read quickly, being able to put their thoughts together, if they are just relying on ChatGPT or other large language models. But I also understand that, being familiar with technology at a young age is important, so be able to like adapt them to your needs. But I wish there was something more that they could do with technology and just not be consumers. They could, I mean, so like what could be the ways, what could be the possible ways in which AI can be integrated meaningfully into our education system? Do you have some, models in mind? And also, like, we are sitting in a country where my mother's school, she recently retired, they don't have fans, they don't have proper buildings for all the classrooms. So how can we, I mean, how can we with little resources ensure that we are sort of making some meaningful change and we are keeping up with the changing world?
One thing that scares me a lot is the divide, the digital divide. And we keep saying, AI is not going to create any new problems, but it's gonna, uh, how do I say, amplify many of the socio-economic challenges, right? It's quite clear. When I was with India AI portal, we used to cover students who've been building AI tools. I remember a student who built an AI tool. I think she was part of the Intel and MIT had a responsible AI for youth program, and she was part of that cohort. And she built a tool which helped blind people cross the roads. And you know how difficult it is for that to happen in India. And then I come to Kerala, known for its educational prowess, and I was in a school in a in a rural area, and none of the students could answer my question, asking what do you understand by AI. So then we had to the teacher who was there has to explain it by telling the story of this Malayalam movie Android Kunyappan, which is a movie where a robot lives with an old man. Or then they had to explain saying Chitti from Robo, the in the Rajinikanth movie, right? So that's the one big challenge, right? So how do we address that? That's one thing that we have to come to that. Secondly, how everyone uses, right? We keep selling technology itself is not the harm, right? It's about the people who are using it and who are deploying it, both sides to it, right? For example, I remember the early days of social media, right? I remember it was 2007, 8, when I started with Orkut. Once in a week you go to this internet cafe, and I think the college library blogged Orkut, and you check your Orkut, or then Facebook came. It was about people, it was about forming genuine connections, right? So many people got in touch with their old colleagues, all the classmates. It was genuinely a useful tool till Mr. Zuck decided to change things around, right? He wanted to control what people saying, Even in Instagram, a platform I regularly use, because I think I came there to because there was this old cappuccino photos and all these moody vibe photos back then, which was about community, which was about the aesthetics, right? And not about irritating reels. So then things changed, right? The chronological timeline disappeared. People were thrown into their echo chambers, and look at what happened in Myanmar, Sri Lanka, many other countries, even in India, right? So it's about the people who deploy it and how the people use it. Now, coming to tools like ChatGPT, I think there are cases where I regularly use it, and sometimes it will be about a concept I won't understand easily. I will ask him to explain it. Tell me string theory, or tell me something like permutations or combination, which I keep still struggle with, or something like that, right? It will give me a definition. Then I might not be able to digest it. Then okay, teach me as if I am five. Then it will break down. Okay, this is. Okay, then I can ask questions. So that part I really enjoy. Okay, it is like nowadays we don't have, our teachers doesn't have the patience for that, right? And I believe the best way of learning is one-on-one learning, right? I started recently started learning violin, and I had this wonderful coach who comes and he sits and he sees how I'm struggling. He will notice that minor thing. You are struggling because you are doing this tiny thing. Maybe you are holding it in a slightly thing. Maybe you are exerting too much pressure, things like that. But when you have a class of 60, 70 children, right, you don't get that kind of attention. So that's where AI comes into picture, right? And I have used AI to learn new things. Or if I'm struggling with my violin thing, or I'm doing something, I will check with it, right? So I am using it as a sort of a learning database, or a knowledge hub, right? About just giving, breaking down concepts for me, thinking, those kind of things. And maybe a tool that can fix my grammar and typos while writing. But we are seeing more and more people relying on AI as a therapist, which we just saw recently, how this young lady killed herself after having a conversation with a therapy chat GPT chat. And some people used to do their work. Remember, we hosted an ideathon in Digital University Kerala as part of our Mozilla event, and we gave students some some topics to for them to come up with some solutions. Now the first student presented it, not bad. One second student presented it, and then I started to get the gist. So I told nobody should leave until everyone finished the presentation. So everybody sitting, and most of their presentations were same, ditto. And then finally I closed the door and called them up and asked, how many of you used AI? Nobody was raising hand. There's nothing wrong with that. Even I used it for the speech I gave you few minutes back, right? It polished that speech, and then everybody raised. Now I'm not asking you not to use it, but put some effort. You are just copy pasting that topic we gave, and it gave one answer, and everybody shared the same answer. Now use your brain, right? Query more, put more components, how you can get a better answer. So that requires more patience, maybe more curiosity. So that's something I don't know how many of our students have these days, especially patience and attention. So it's about how you use it. And on the other side of the spectrum, I'm now hearing how universities are asking students to give oral presentations because they don't buy anything that's written. But at the same, but that raises a different kind of challenges. What about students who are not comfortable in speaking in stages, right? I remember I was very bad in public speaking till I was in eighth grade or something. I used to get very nervous. So this that definitely give a disadvantage for hardworking students who may not be good with speaking abilities. So it creates a lot of questions. So I think this is an opportunity for us to reinvent how education should be, what it actually stands for. And I believe firmly education is never about rote learning, or I mean, there is so yeah. So that's what I think.
Taking that cue from that, you don't believe in rote learning, do you think that we do need to change our approach towards education itself and the meaning of it? And also, do you think that we are having a lot of debates in the nation about curriculum? Do you think they are rather redundant and misplaced?
Yeah, so curriculum has, so for example, let's look at computer science curriculum, right? It's still, our universities, I'm not talking about the premier institutes, IITs, ISC, ISI, all IIITs. I'm talking about the regular private universities and private colleges, and some of the aided colleges and government colleges, things like that. So our computer science curriculum, whether it's engineering or BSc computer science or BCA, it's tailored in a way that these students will get a job in a tech company. Infosys, Wipro, TCS, right? And I'm never been a big fan of this big companies because these days they pay 3.5 lakhs or even less as opening entry level package to many of these students when they join, which is almost same or lesser than what they were paying 7 or 10 years ago. So I keep telling this. Many of the people in the IT industry won't love hearing it. If Chinese spoke English better than us, we wouldn't have an IT industry. We were just doing service jobs. We were just outsourcing the work which may be too expensive to get done with American and European employees. And we were essentially running some sort of a digital sweatshop, right? And nothing beyond that. So because of that, now the question is, these companies are only after profit, right? Yeah, Narayan Murthy can say work 70 hours a week. I'm sure his daughter is not doing that. So he can say all those things, but in the end, they are all there for profit. Now, if it help them, now that's a question. Do the companies need to employ these Indian laborers or deploy AI? Or what about the companies that want their service? They can also resort to AI, right? So that means there were no longer a demand for this kind of jobs in the job market, right? So that leads to a question. Then what are we going to teach the students, right? And now, like you said, AI has democratized so many things, and one thing it has definitely democratized coding. The entry level coding can be now done with AI. People can make apps with AI. People can make so many websites, everything. So if there is no requirement for those kind of jobs out there, what are we teaching in computer science, right? So that's why we came up with a responsible computing challenge, where we decided how can we incorporate, how can we have a multidisciplinary approach to computing, right? How can we make sure these students who are taking this program are not just built to be another IT employee, but rather a change maker in the society? And we have seen significant progress with that, right? Students who have taken our program has built tools, built open source tools, startups, and many other things that add values to the economy as well as the society in overall. So it's a time where we need to undergo this larger shift, right? But unfortunately, people like to keep things the way it is.
Thank you so much, Jibu. Thank you for this very engaging, very funny conversation we had.
If you enjoyed watching this episode of Technocracy, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more AI related conversation, you can also watch IGPP Expert Talks AI Special Series.